behind the golden gates of Buckingham Palace, where every gesture is watched and every moment calculated, a single act of defiance would shake the very foundations of royal protocol. When family loyalty collides with duty to the crown, even the most elite guards face an impossible choice. What happens when protecting one young prince means confronting another member of the royal family? This is the untold story of a moment that tested the limits of royal protection, family bonds, and the unwritten rules that govern the most powerful family in Britain. The morning sun cast long shadows across the perfectly manicured gardens of Clarence House as Queen Camilla adjusted her pearl necklace one final time. Today marked a special occasion, a rare family gathering that would bring together multiple generations of the royal family for what palace officials had carefully termed a private garden party. The event had been months in planning, designed to strengthen family bonds and provide positive media coverage during a particularly challenging period for the monarchy. Detective Inspector Sarah Mitchell had arrived at dawn to oversee the security arrangements. As one of the most experienced members of the Royal Protection Squad, she understood that family events often presented unique challenges. Unlike state functions where protocol was clearly defined, family gatherings required a delicate balance between security and allowing natural family interactions to unfold. The guest list was impressive by any standard. Prince William and Catherine would arrive with their 3 children, including 10-year-old Prince George, whose position as second in line to the throne made him one of the most protected children in the world. Princess Anne would attend with her grandchildren, and various cousins and extended family members had confirmed their attendance. Most notably, Queen Camilla's son Tom Parker Bowles would be present with his own children, marking one of the few times he had attended such a high-profile royal family event. Tom Parker Bowles had always occupied an unusual position within the royal sphere. As the son of the Queen Consort, he held no official title and maintained his career as a food critic and author. However, his mother's marriage to King Charles had inevitably drawn him into the royal orbit, creating complex dynamics that security personnel had to navigate carefully. Unlike other family members who had grown up with royal protection, Tom's relationship with palace protocol remained somewhat informal. The gardens had been transformed for the occasion. White marquees dotted the landscape, their elegant curves complementing the natural beauty of the centuries-old grounds. Children's activities had been carefully planned and positioned in areas that provided both entertainment and security advantages. A small putting green had been installed near the main terrace, while traditional garden games were arranged across the lawn. Security preparations had begun weeks earlier. Every guest had been thoroughly vetted, staff members had undergone additional background checks, and the estate's perimeter had been reinforced with additional surveillance equipment. The challenge lay not in protecting against external threats, but in managing the complex interpersonal dynamics that inevitably emerged when powerful families gathered together. Prince George had been particularly excited about the event. His protection officers, led by Sergeant James Crawford, had spent considerable time discussing appropriate behavior and protocols with the young prince. Unlike formal state occasions where every movement was choreographed, family gatherings required George to navigate between being a normal child and maintaining the dignity expected of his position. The relationship between different branches of the royal family had always required careful management. While public appearances suggested harmony, private family dynamics were far more complex. Queen Camilla's children had worked hard to establish their own identities separate from royal expectations, but events like this inevitably brought underlying tensions to the surface. As guests began arriving, the security team maintained their positions throughout the gardens. Radio communications crackled with regular updates as each family group was escorted to their designated areas. The afternoon was planned to be informal, with family members free to mingle and children encouraged to play together under watchful but discreet supervision. Tom Parker Bowles arrived fashionably late, as was his custom. His casual approach to royal protocol had sometimes caused minor friction with palace staff, but King Charles had made it clear that his stepson should be treated with appropriate respect and courtesy. Tom brought his own children to the gathering. Teenagers who were clearly uncomfortable with the formal atmosphere despite organizers' attempts to create a relaxed environment. The first few hours proceeded smoothly. Children ran across the lawns, while adults engaged in careful conversation, navigating topics that avoided potentially controversial subjects. Photography was strictly limited to official palace photographers, ensuring that any images released would present the family in the most favorable light possible. Prince George quickly became the center of attention among the younger attendees. His natural leadership abilities and genuine curiosity about his extended family members made him popular with both adults and children. Security officers noted his enthusiasm while remaining alert to potential safety concerns that could arise from excessive excitement or rough play. The turning point began subtly. During a game of cricket organized on the main lawn, competitive spirits began to emerge. What had started as gentle family fun gradually escalated as personalities asserted themselves. Tom Parker Bowles, known for his strong opinions and direct communication style, began offering increasingly loud commentary on the game's progress. Queen Camilla watched from the terrace with growing concern. She had hoped that this gathering would demonstrate her family's successful integration with the royal household, but she could sense tension building. Her son's competitive nature, while admirable in many contexts, could become problematic in situations requiring diplomatic restraint. Prince William and Catherine maintained their composure, but experienced observers could detect subtle signs of discomfort. Their protection officers, highly attuned to their principals' emotional states, began adjusting their positions slightly, moving closer to the children while maintaining the appearance of casual observation. The security team's communications reflected growing alertness. While no specific threat had emerged, the changing atmosphere required heightened attention to interpersonal dynamics. Family disputes, while not typically dangerous, could create situations where protective protocols might need to be implemented quickly. As the afternoon progressed, the careful balance between family celebration and royal dignity began to shift. The children, picking up on adult tensions, became more boisterous in their play. Adult conversations grew more animated, and the informal atmosphere that organizers had worked so hard to create began to feel forced and artificial. Detective Inspector Mitchell found herself in the challenging position of monitoring a situation where the primary concerns were diplomatic rather than physical security. Her team's training had prepared them for traditional threats, but family dynamics required different skills and sensitivities. The stage was set for an incident that would test everyone's ability to maintain composure under pressure. In the royal world, where every action carries potential consequences, even family gatherings can become high-stakes events requiring careful management and quick thinking from all involved. The cricket match had evolved from a friendly family game into something far more competitive than anyone had anticipated. Tom Parker Bowles, wielding the bat with enthusiasm that bordered on aggression, had begun treating the informal match as though it were a professional tournament. His running commentary, initially amusing to some family members, had grown increasingly critical of other players' performances. Prince George, positioned in the field, demonstrated the natural athleticism that had impressed his sports instructors at school. His quick reflexes and genuine enthusiasm for the game made him one of the most effective players, despite being among the youngest participants. However, his success began to draw attention that made his protection officers increasingly uncomfortable. Sergeant James Crawford maintained his position near the boundary, close enough to intervene if necessary, but far enough away to allow natural family interaction. His years of experience protecting royal family members had taught him to recognize subtle warning signs that others might miss. The changing body language of various participants suggested that the friendly competition was becoming more serious than appropriate for a family gathering. Tom's competitive nature had always been legendary among his friends and colleagues. In his professional life as a food critic, this drive for excellence served him well, but in family settings, it could create uncomfortable dynamics. His mother, Queen Camilla, had often worried about how his strong personality might clash with royal expectations during formal family events. The game reached a critical moment when Prince George attempted a particularly challenging catch. The ball sailed high above the garden, and the young prince ran backwards, his eyes fixed on its trajectory. His determination to make the catch impressed everyone watching, but it also put him in a potentially vulnerable position as he moved closer to areas where security coverage was less comprehensive. Tom Parker Bowles, running to back up the play, found himself on a collision course with the young prince. In his intense focus on winning the point, he failed to notice the careful spacing that protection officers had established around George. The security team immediately recognized the developing situation and began adjusting their positions, but protocol required them to avoid obviously interfering with family interactions unless absolutely necessary. The collision, when it came, was not particularly violent by sporting standards, but its implications were far more serious than anyone initially realized. Tom's shoulder connected with Prince George's back, sending the young prince tumbling forward onto the carefully maintained lawn. The cricket ball landed safely nearby, forgotten in the sudden concern for George's well-being. Queen Camilla rose from her chair on the terrace, her face displaying a mixture of concern for her grandson and anxiety about her son's role in the incident. Years of navigating complex family dynamics had taught her to recognize moments when small events could have lasting consequences for family relationships. Prince William's reaction was immediate and telling. While he maintained outward composure, those who knew him well could detect the protective tension that emerged whenever his children faced any form of threat or discomfort. Catherine moved closer to the field, her maternal instincts activating despite the presence of professional protection officers. Sergeant Crawford reached Prince George within seconds, his training allowing him to assess the situation quickly while maintaining appropriate protocol. The young prince appeared more surprised than injured, but royal protection procedures required immediate medical evaluation for any incident involving physical contact with the heir to the throne. Tom Parker Bowles, realizing what had happened, immediately attempted to help George to his feet. His intentions were clearly benevolent, motivated by genuine concern for his stepbrother's son, but his approach demonstrated a fundamental misunderstanding of royal protection protocols. In his eagerness to make amends, he reached for George's arm without considering how his actions might be perceived by security personnel. The protection team faced an unprecedented situation. Their primary responsibility was Prince George's safety, but the threat, if it could be called that, came from a family member whose presence had been specifically authorized by the highest levels of royal household management. Traditional threat assessment protocols provided little guidance for scenarios involving family disputes or accidental contact. Detective Inspector Mitchell's radio crackled with urgent communications as various team members reported their observations and requested guidance. The incident had occurred in full view of multiple family members, palace staff, and security personnel, ensuring that any response would be carefully scrutinized and remembered. Prince George, demonstrating the resilience that his parents had worked hard to develop, quickly regained his composure and attempted to continue playing. However, his protection detail could not simply ignore what had transpired. Even accidental physical contact with royal family members triggered specific protocols designed to prevent escalation and ensure proper documentation. The other family members present found themselves in an awkward position. While the incident appeared to be nothing more than an unfortunate collision during a spirited game, the formal atmosphere of royal gatherings meant that everyone's response would be carefully noted and potentially discussed for years to come. Tom's attempts to minimize the situation inadvertently made it more complicated. His casual approach to royal protocol, while refreshing in many contexts, proved problematic when dealing with security procedures that had been developed over decades to protect the royal family from various threats. Queen Camilla attempted to defuse the tension by calling for a break in the game and suggesting that everyone move to the terrace for refreshments. Her diplomatic skills, honed through years of navigating royal family dynamics, told her that the situation required careful management rather than dramatic intervention. The security team's communications reflected their growing uncertainty about how to proceed. While no actual threat existed, the incident had created a situation where standard protocols were insufficient to address the complex family and diplomatic considerations involved. Prince William approached the group with careful deliberation, his experience with royal protection allowing him to understand the security team's dilemma while also recognizing his role as both a father and a future king. His response to the situation would likely set the tone for how the incident was ultimately resolved and remembered. The afternoon's carefully planned schedule had been effectively disrupted, but more importantly, the incident had revealed underlying tensions that formal royal events usually manage to conceal. The question now became whether the family could address the situation in a way that strengthened relationships rather than creating lasting divisions. As family members gathered around Prince George to ensure his well-being, the protection team maintained their positions while internally debating how formal their response should be. The incident would certainly be documented and reported, but the level of official response remained to be determined based on how the family chose to handle the immediate aftermath. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test everyone's ability to balance family loyalty with institutional responsibility. The moment that would define the entire afternoon began with what seemed like a simple gesture of concern. Tom Parker Bowles, genuinely worried about Prince George's condition and eager to demonstrate that the collision had been completely accidental, reached out to steady the young prince who was still catching his breath from the fall. His hand moved toward George's shoulder in what was clearly intended as a comforting, apologetic touch. Sergeant James Crawford's reaction was instantaneous and professional. Years of training had conditioned him to respond to any unauthorized physical contact with his principal, regardless of the source or apparent intent. His movement was smooth and deliberate as he stepped between Tom and Prince George, his body language calm but unmistakably authoritative. The confrontation that followed would be remembered by everyone present as a masterclass in professional restraint under extraordinary circumstances. Crawford's voice remained steady and respectful as he addressed Tom directly, but his words carried the full weight of royal protection protocol behind them. Tom Parker Bowles found himself in a position he had never experienced before. Despite his mother's marriage to the king, he had largely remained outside the formal structure of royal life, maintaining his independence and avoiding the restrictions that came with official royal status. Now, suddenly, he was being treated as a potential threat to his own family member. The security officer's intervention was technically correct according to established protocols, but the family dynamics made the situation extraordinarily delicate. Tom's initial reaction was one of confusion and mild indignation. He had been attempting to help a child who was, in many ways, his own family member, and the formal intervention seemed both unnecessary and insulting. Prince George, caught in the middle of this adult confrontation, displayed remarkable composure for someone his age. His royal education had prepared him for many unusual situations, but watching his step-grandmother's son being confronted by his own protection officer created a scenario that no amount of training could have fully anticipated. Queen Camilla's position became increasingly uncomfortable as she watched the confrontation unfold. Her loyalty was divided between her son, who she knew had acted without any malicious intent, and her understanding of the security requirements that governed royal family life. Her diplomatic training told her to remain neutral, but her maternal instincts made that nearly impossible. Detective Inspector Mitchell recognized that the situation required immediate and careful management. The confrontation between Crawford and Tom was technically justified, but the family context made it potentially explosive. Her radio communications with the command center reflected the unprecedented nature of the situation and the need for guidance from the highest levels of palace security management. Tom's response to Crawford's intervention revealed both his personality and his limited understanding of royal protection protocols. Rather than stepping back and allowing the security officer to handle the situation professionally, he attempted to explain his relationship to Prince George and his right to show concern for the boy's welfare. The exchange that followed highlighted the fundamental tension between family relationships and institutional security requirements. Tom's argument that he was essentially George's step-uncle carried emotional weight, but no formal recognition within the security framework that governed royal protection. Sergeant Crawford found himself in an almost impossible position. His duty was clear: protect Prince George from any unauthorized contact or potential threat. However, the person he was protecting against was a family member whose presence had been specifically authorized and welcomed by the royal household. Prince William's approach to the developing situation demonstrated his sophisticated understanding of both family dynamics and royal protocol. Rather than immediately taking sides, he positioned himself where he could quickly intervene if necessary, while allowing the professional security personnel to handle the immediate confrontation. The other family members present became unwitting witnesses to a clash between two different worlds: the informal, personal relationships that define family life and the formal, institutional requirements that govern royal security. Their discomfort was visible as they struggled to determine appropriate responses to the unprecedented situation. Tom's frustration began to show as he realized that his family connection provided no special status in the security officer's decision-making process. His casual familiarity with some aspects of royal life had not prepared him for the absolute nature of protection protocols when they were formally invoked. The confrontation reached its peak when Tom attempted to move around Crawford to reach Prince George directly. His action was not aggressive or threatening, but it represented a direct challenge to the security officer's authority and professional judgment. Crawford's response was to gently but firmly block Tom's movement while maintaining his respectful but authoritative demeanor. Prince George, demonstrating wisdom beyond his years, attempted to defuse the situation by assuring everyone that he was perfectly fine and that the collision had been accidental. However, his intervention, while appreciated, could not address the fundamental protocol issues that had been triggered by the incident. Queen Camilla made the decision to intervene directly, approaching the group and addressing both her son and the security officer with the diplomatic skills she had developed over years of royal life. Her words were carefully chosen to acknowledge both Tom's good intentions and Crawford's professional responsibilities. The tension in the garden was palpable as other family members watched the drama unfold. The incident had transformed what was intended to be a relaxed family gathering into a formal confrontation that highlighted the complex relationships between family members, security personnel, and royal protocol. Catherine's maternal instincts were clearly activated as she watched the situation develop around her son. Her experience as a royal family member gave her unique insight into both the security requirements and the family dynamics at play, but her position as Prince George's mother made neutral observation nearly impossible. The confrontation continued to escalate despite everyone's apparent desire to resolve it quietly and diplomatically. Tom's growing frustration with what he perceived as unnecessary formality clashed with Crawford's professional obligation to maintain security protocols regardless of family relationships or social pressure. As the standoff continued, it became clear that resolution would require intervention from someone with both family authority and institutional standing. The question became whether such intervention would come in time to prevent lasting damage to family relationships and whether it would satisfy the legitimate security concerns that had triggered the confrontation. The arrival of King Charles at the garden party had been planned as a surprise for the family, but his timing proved to be extraordinarily fortunate. His characteristic punctuality meant that he appeared just as the confrontation between Sergeant Crawford and Tom Parker Bowles reached its most tense moment. The king's immediate assessment of the situation demonstrated the political acuity that had served him well throughout his long preparation for the throne. King Charles approached the group with the measured pace that had become his signature in difficult situations. His presence immediately changed the dynamic, as both family members and security personnel recognized that someone with ultimate authority over both family relationships and royal protection had arrived to address the unprecedented situation. Tom Parker Bowles' reaction to his stepfather's arrival was complex. Relief at having someone who understood both his position and his intentions was mixed with concern that the incident might reflect poorly on his mother's integration into the royal family. His relationship with King Charles had always been respectful, but somewhat formal, lacking the easy familiarity that characterized his relationships with his own family members. Sergeant Crawford's professionalism was evident in his immediate briefing of the king regarding the incident and his assessment of the current situation. His report was concise, but comprehensive, covering both the initial collision during the cricket match and the subsequent confrontation that had developed when Tom attempted to check on Prince George's condition. Prince George's relief at his grandfather's arrival was visible to everyone present. The young prince had handled the adult confrontation with remarkable maturity, but the presence of someone with both family authority and institutional power clearly provided him with a sense of security that allowed him to relax slightly. The king's first action was to ensure Prince George's well-being, both physical and emotional. His gentle conversation with his grandson served multiple purposes. It demonstrated appropriate family concern, assessed any potential injury, and provided time for him to consider how best to address the broader situation that had developed. Queen Camilla's gratitude for her husband's arrival and intervention was evident in her body language and facial expression. The impossible position she had found herself in, torn between loyalty to her son and support for royal security protocols, could now be resolved through Charles's authority and diplomatic experience. King Charles's conversation with Tom was masterful in its combination of family warmth and institutional clarity. He acknowledged Tom's genuine concern for Prince George while also explaining the security requirements that made formal protection protocols non-negotiable, even in family settings. His tone was educational rather than critical, helping Tom understand rather than embarrassing him. The explanation that followed provided valuable insight into the complex world of royal security for all family members present. King Charles outlined how protection protocols were designed not to exclude family members, but to ensure consistency and professionalism in all situations involving potential threats to royal family members. Detective Inspector Mitchell watched the king's handling of the situation with professional admiration. His ability to address multiple audiences simultaneously, family members, security personnel, and staff, while maintaining authority and warmth demonstrated the diplomatic skills that made effective royal leadership possible. Tom's response to the king's explanation showed both his intelligence and his fundamental decency. Once he understood the broader context and security implications, his frustration transformed into acceptance and even appreciation for the protection his stepfamily received. His apology to Sergeant Crawford was genuine and demonstrated his ability to recognize when he had been wrong. The conversation that followed between Tom and Crawford was remarkable for its mutual respect and understanding. The security officer's patient explanation of protection protocols helped Tom understand that the intervention had not been personal, but professional. Tom's acknowledgement of his misunderstanding allowed both men to move forward with mutual respect and tact. Prince George's role in facilitating reconciliation was both touching and impressive. His suggestion that Tom be allowed to check on his well-being, with Crawford's supervision and approval, demonstrated political instincts that belied his young age. The compromise satisfied security requirements while acknowledging family relationships. King Charles's decision to invite Tom to accompany him on a brief tour of the garden security arrangements served multiple purposes. It provided Tom with insight into the complexity of royal protection, demonstrated the family's trust in him, and allowed time for the immediate tension to dissipate while other family members resumed their activities. The educational aspect of the afternoon proved valuable for all family members present. Many had limited understanding of the security challenges faced by royal protection officers and the protocols that govern their decision-making. The incident, while uncomfortable, provided useful insight into these requirements. Queen Camilla's private conversation with Detective Inspector Mitchell revealed her sophisticated understanding of the challenges facing security personnel in family settings. Her suggestions for future family events reflected her desire to prevent similar incidents while maintaining the informal atmosphere that made such gatherings valuable for family relationships. The resumption of family activities occurred gradually and naturally as the immediate tension dissipated. Children returned to their games, adults resumed their conversations, and the security team adjusted their positions to provide appropriate coverage while remaining as unobtrusive as possible. Tom's integration into the ongoing family activities was handled with characteristic royal diplomacy. Rather than dwelling on the incident or making it a topic of continued discussion, family members followed the king's lead in treating it as a learning experience that had been successfully resolved. The afternoon's conclusion was marked by a group photograph that included all family members, including Tom and his children. The image, carefully composed by palace photographers, would later be released as evidence of family harmony and successful integration of all family members into royal life. Prince George's behavior throughout the remainder of the afternoon demonstrated remarkable resilience and maturity. His easy interaction with Tom showed no lasting effects from either the initial collision or the subsequent confrontation, reflecting both his natural temperament and the effectiveness of his parents' guidance. The security team's after-action review of the incident would later become a case study in managing complex family dynamics while maintaining professional protection standards. The successful resolution demonstrated that even unprecedented situations could be handled effectively with proper communication and leadership. As the family gathering drew to a close, the transformation from potential crisis to successful resolution was evident in everyone's behavior. What could have become a lasting source of family tension had instead become an opportunity for better understanding and improved relationships among all involved parties. The weeks following the garden party incident brought unexpected changes to how royal family gatherings were planned and managed. The confrontation between Sergeant Crawford and Tom Parker Bowles had revealed gaps in existing protocols that needed to be addressed to prevent similar situations from occurring in the future. The royal household staff began developing new guidelines that would better integrate family members with varying levels of formal royal status. Tom Parker Bowles found himself profoundly affected by the experience. His understanding of royal life had been largely theoretical before the incident, based on observation rather than direct experience with the formal requirements that governed his mother's new family. The confrontation with royal protection protocols forced him to confront the reality of what Queen Camilla's marriage to King Charles meant for everyone connected to the royal household. In the days following the garden party, Tom reached out to Sergeant Crawford to express his gratitude for the officer's professionalism during their confrontation. Their subsequent conversation led to an informal briefing about royal protection requirements that proved invaluable for Tom's future interactions with the royal family. This voluntary education demonstrated Tom's commitment to adapting to his family's unique circumstances. Prince George's reaction to the incident surprised many observers with its maturity and emotional intelligence. Rather than being traumatized or confused by the adult confrontation he had witnessed, the young prince seemed to understand instinctively that the security protocols existed for his protection. His continued easy relationship with both Tom and his protection officers showed remarkable resilience. The incident prompted King Charles to review and update the royal family's approach to integrating extended family members into formal events. His diplomatic resolution of the confrontation had been successful, but he recognized that prevention would be preferable to crisis management in future situations. New protocols were developed to provide clearer guidance for family members with varying degrees of royal status. Queen Camilla's role in the aftermath proved crucial to the long-term success of the resolution. Her private conversations with various family members helped ensure that the incident did not create lasting divisions or resentments. Her diplomatic skills, developed over years of navigating complex social situations, proved invaluable in maintaining family harmony while respecting institutional requirements. Detective Inspector Mitchell's report on the incident became a landmark document in royal protection training. Her analysis of the complex family dynamics involved in security situations provided valuable insights for other protection officers who might face similar challenges. The incident highlighted the need for enhanced training in managing threats that came from within authorized circles rather than external sources. The media's handling of the incident, when details eventually emerged months later, demonstrated the royal family's successful management of potentially damaging publicity. Rather than becoming a source of embarrassment or controversy, the story was presented as an example of how professional security protocols operated effectively even in complex family situations. Prince William and Catherine's response to the incident reflected their growing confidence as senior royal family members. Their balanced approach, supporting both family relationships and security requirements, demonstrated the diplomatic skills that would serve them well in their future roles as king and queen. The changes implemented in royal security protocols following the incident had implications beyond family gatherings. The recognition that authorized individuals could inadvertently create security challenges led to enhanced communication procedures and clearer guidelines for managing various types of social situations involving royal family members. Tom's children, who had witnessed the confrontation, required sensitive handling to ensure their understanding of what had occurred. Their teenage perspectives on royal security provided valuable insights into how younger family members perceive the formal requirements of royal life. Their successful integration into subsequent family events demonstrated the effectiveness of the educational approach taken by the royal household. Sergeant Crawford's professional development benefited significantly from the incident. His handling of an unprecedented situation under enormous pressure earned recognition from his superiors and led to enhanced responsibilities within the Royal Protection Team. The incident became a defining moment in his career, demonstrating his ability to balance competing priorities under extreme pressure. The cricket match that had triggered the initial incident was remembered fondly by family members as an example of competitive family fun, despite its unexpected consequences. The ability to separate the sporting collision from the subsequent confrontation demonstrated the family's emotional maturity and commitment to maintaining positive relationships despite occasional difficulties. Educational initiatives developed following the incident extended beyond immediate family members to include palace staff, security personnel, and other individuals who regularly interacted with the royal household. The recognition that complex family dynamics could create unexpected challenges led to enhanced training programs for all personnel. The incident's influence on future family events was generally positive, creating an atmosphere of greater understanding and clearer communication about expectations and protocols. Family members reported feeling more comfortable attending events where guidelines were clearly established and consistently applied. Prince George's protection team incorporated lessons learned from the incident into their ongoing strategies for managing his security in various social settings. The young prince's demonstrated ability to handle complex adult situations influenced decisions about his participation in future family and public events. The long-term relationship between Tom Parker Bowles and the Royal Protection Services became a model for how extended family members could successfully navigate the complex requirements of royal security. His willingness to learn and adapt, combined with the security team's patient education, created a framework that could be applied to other similar situations. The incident's legacy extended to academic and professional discussions about security protocol development in complex institutional settings. The successful resolution demonstrated that even unprecedented situations could be managed effectively when proper leadership, communication, and mutual respect were maintained among all parties involved. Years later, when Prince George had grown into his teenage years, he would occasionally reference the garden party incident as an example of how different people could work together to resolve difficult situations. His memory of the day focused not on the confrontation itself, but on the mature, respectful way that all the adults involved had ultimately handled their disagreements. The incident ultimately strengthened rather than weaken the bonds between different branches of the royal family. The successful resolution demonstrated that institutional requirements and personal relationships could coexist when managed with wisdom, patience, and mutual respect. The garden party that could have created lasting divisions instead became a foundation for stronger, more understanding family relationships that would serve the monarchy well in the years to come.